Well, hello everybody. Bill Russell. I'm the Associate Dean International for the School of Business here at the University of Dundee. And today we're just going to talk very briefly about the MSc Finance program with its pathways with the director of the MSc Finance program, which is Bruce Burton. Would you like to just introduce yourself a little bit, Bruce, and also how you came to Dundee?
Thanks, Bill. Yes, delighted to be able to say hello to those interested in the programme. As Bill says, my name is Bruce Burton. I'm a Professor of Finance within the Accounting and Finance Division in the School of Business. I've quite a long history with Dundee. I was actually born here many decades ago now. Well, my accent isn't really a traditional Dundee accent. I studied here, did a PhD here, and I came back into my second lecturing job here 20 years ago to continue the finance research that I started in my PhD and to work with some colleagues who'd previously been fantastic lecturers of mine, and some of whom are still here, some of whom you'll actually meet on the programme, I'm delighted to say. And yeah, so I'm a kind of Dundee boy, but I'm delighted to be part of the school. The school has been a huge success over the last few years, and seen it grow and mature to where it is now is terrific. As somebody who's got sort of Dundee in the DNA, I'm delighted.
So also you're the Professor of Finance. Is that your proper title? Yes.
Yeah, I'm a Professor of Finance. What I do though, it's a more critical sort of finance. I mean, I do some of the quantitative database, econometrics driven finance, but a lot of what I do now is looking at corporate finance and how corporate finance failures affect not just companies, not just investors, but the people who rely on companies for their employment, the people who rely on companies for the supply of goods. A lot of outcomes in the developing world where economies are changing fast, but corporate governance outcomes are still very poor. It's a fascinating area, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, although
and an important area.
I think so, increasingly, yeah. The world is changing very quickly.
Yes.
And there's a danger corporate governance standards don't always feature as strongly in that conversation as they should do.
Now, you also used to be an editor of a finance journal. Is that still the case? Are you
I still am, yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, I established the journal Qualitative Research in Financial Markets 11 years ago. I'd done a special issue of another journal on qualitative finance. And when I was getting submissions in for that, I saw there's an incredibly rich swathe of work across the world that use qualitative methods. In some countries, they don't have the databases that permit running the tapes and running the regression models, but there's some terrific work being done in the field, speaking to people, going out there and talking to people, running case studies, doing in-depth interviews and discussions with marginalized communities, with investor groups, with regulators. That then led to a journal proposal with the publishers, Emerald, one of the big publishing houses, and they loved it. And so we set up the first issue in 2010, 3 issues a year. We're now about to go to 5 issues a year, and we're rising up through the rankings, and it's terrific. I'm still involved with that.
Okay.
That led to the establishment of my research centre, the Centre for Qualitative Research in Finance at Dundee. We had our first big international conference in Dundee just over a year ago, actually. And we had hoped to run some sort of physical event this year. That wasn't possible. So there'll be another event next year. But we had academics from all over the world. We had people from Sri Lanka, the Philippines, North America, Eastern Europe, all came to the conference and presented their work. And Dundee has increasingly been seen as a kind of hub for this qualitative work. You're interested in finance, you're interested in market outcomes. Sometimes you need to talk to people. And that's what fascinates me. And that's what. So
just for the people listening, the difference really is qualitative versus quantitative. So in most finance, when you think of finance, you're thinking of quantitative, which is empirical and numbers and the data is available. Just say a little bit about qualitative, how it differs from quantitative. That would be quite interesting, I think.
Yeah, it's really about depth of analysis. We have incredible econometric techniques available now, so you can analyze huge data sets very quickly, but the depth of analysis isn't actually there. And when finance started, go back to the 1950s, some of the very early studies in finance were interview-based. People wanted to know how firms make a dividend decision. The very early studies, they went out and asked the firm, how do you make your dividend decisions? Then the tapes of data, started in Chicago and other parts of North America and spread to Europe, doing a fantastic job. But we lost for a while this emphasis on qualitative work, actually speaking to people. However, as I say, in the developing world, where some of these tech databases were not available, there was some incredible qualitative work still going on, which I discovered through the special issue, and people want to publish. And focusing on qualitative work it's shown what a wide global span important finance research has. It's just not all quantitative for practical reasons. But it's speaking to people, it's case studies, it's interviews, it's getting your hands dirty. It's all these things that interest me, and I'm glad and do seem to be interesting people, and decently, a growing research community across the world, actually.
Well, I think it's very clever because quite often people get rid of all of the personal level and then they make very simple assumptions about how people work, and then they assume profit maximization, whatever it is, optimization, and the work that you're doing is actually showing the richness, how people deviate away from those sorts of behaviors as you're going along, or conform with it as well.
Yeah.
So very good. Listen, not exactly what we're here to talk about today, but I still enjoy talking about it.
Yeah.
So let me share the screen with a few overheads, and then we can talk a little bit about the finance program itself. I can go up to a full screen just to make this look good. Okay. Now, listen, why don't you talk this through, Bruce, a little bit about the finance program and its pathways, and just talk your way through this.
Yeah. So essentially, I mean, there are three options. There's actually four ways of undertaking the finance program, depending on your particular interest. So you can do what we kind of think of as the bedrock MSc Finance program, which has got lots of flexibility. There's not much in terms of mandatory compulsory modules on the MSc Finance program itself. One or two generic ones that I'll come to in a second or two. But what we've developed over the years speaking to students is that as markets have changed in the practical world of finance, students really tend to like something on their CV and something that reflects some of these specific areas in which global markets are changing. So as well as the bedrock MSc Finance, there are three prescribed pathways, one with finance and risk, one with finance and investment, one with finance and banking. That means one or two of your modules are pre-specified. If you're doing risk, you'll be looking at you will have to take the modules that look at global risk in financial markets and risk in emerging markets and those sort of things. If you're doing the banking pathway, a couple of the modules that focus on banking outcomes and processes, you will have to take as part of the process. But there's still scope for choice. There's still scope for electives in all the different pathways. You'll notice it says ACCA exemption eligibility. Irrespective of which route you take with the MSc Finance, you're still covering the material that lines up with ACCA's financial management paper at their applied skills level. And that's quite important. You would go through the process of contacting ACCA and saying you've done this, but we always work with the ACCA every year to make sure that we are covering the material that will lead to that exemption. So you are eligible for that, irrespective of the pathway that you choose. The pathways can change. I might say a little bit about this later on. But these pathways are driven by sometimes student feedback. Students say, I'm really interested in the banking side of it, but there's not a banking pathway. Well, we've developed a banking pathway to reflect, what the market wants and what you guys want to do. Risk after 2008, 2009, risk in itself has taken off almost as a sort of standalone area in finance. So we've built in a pathway on that side. A lot of students that come off the program go on to work in investment houses. And so it would naturally make sense if you're clear at the start of the program that is the career path you want, then you go possibly into the MSc Finance and investment route. But there is room in the first couple of weeks. You can swap between programs. You can sit in and audit as many modules as you want to see what sort of things have been taught across these different pathways. And if you're really just interested in finance and what you place value on is flexibility, then there is the basic or the Bedrock MSc Finance program without a named pathway, when you can really dip into whatever you want. Irrespective of your pathway or going down the MSc Finance Bedrock route, there are 2 start dates. January and September start dates are available right across the board for this program.
So just a few things about that. So with the ACCA exemption eligibility, do you know which foundation papers are exempt, which numbers they are? There are 9 foundation papers. Do you know which ones are exempt?
They used to number them F1 to F9, the ACCA. They've now split those into the 3 basic ones. It used to be F1 to F3, are now called applied knowledge papers.
Okay.
And given that most of you thinking of applying for this course will have some accounting or finance background, you may already have covered enough material to get the 3 applied knowledge papers as part of your undergraduate program. They used to be called F1 to F3. But what this also offers is at the applied skills level, which is what F4 to F9 are now called. So the next 6 papers. This program is designed around the financial management paper. I think it used to be called F4. It's now just the financial management paper within applied skills. Our coverage is linked directly to that, so you could easily apply for ACCA exemption and on that basis, again, irrespective of the program that you take, because the material is covered in the generic finance modules.
So you're thinking that it lines up with F1 to F4. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, under the old,
Under the old system, it's F1 to F4.
System, yeah.
Okay. Now, the other interesting thing about these pathways is that the reason why we've done this is because of employability. This is an opportunity to signal to your employer your particular skills base, but also your particular interest as you're going forward. And as Bruce says, if you want to keep the flexibility as broad as possible, then you do MSc Finance. You could still choose the risk and investment modules as the options, but you keep it as broadly as possible. One of the interesting things about the risk pathway was that was in response to talking to a number of directors, people in the finance sector, and we asked them what area in finance always employs in good times and in bad times and at all times, and the answer that came back was risk management. So just as Bruce says, it's become incredibly important after 2007, but it's been growing as a subsector of the finance sector for many years as it goes along. Bruce is also right about January and September dates. It really doesn't matter which one you come to. The interesting thing here, because of all of the uncertainties surrounding COVID-19, if you want to come in September, just continue to apply to come in September. If for some reason you're unable to make it in September, then we will help you transfer your offer and any scholarship to the January intake. But also in September, what we're going to do is we're going to deliver the modules in a blended learning approach with some of the contact with the lecturers in the cloud, some of it through videos, and there will be some interaction on the campus as well. But the nice thing about this is that if you think that you're going to arrive on the 5th in time for the 5th of October, which is when the actual start date is this year, then that's great. But if you're going to arrive 1 or 2 weeks late or 3 or 4 weeks late, then you don't miss out on your learning. You can just keep up with the program online. But as I say, if you want to change it to January, then we will just shift the offer and any scholarship to January as we go forward. So a huge amount of flexibility. Bruce also mentioned that you get to choose your pathway, your modules, towards the end of the second week of being in Dundee. And this allows you to talk not only to the program leader, but the module leaders, find out about the modules, talk to the people who have been on the program from the earlier intake. So there's just an enormous amount of information that you can make use of to make sure that you choose the exactly right pathway going forward. So if we go to the next slide, let's see how we go with that, if it does. Right, so this is just the entry requirement. Given that you've applied already and you've got an offer, then you've already met this condition. The entry is a good first degree, which is what we call equivalent to a 2-2 degree in accounting, finance, or a related business discipline. But as I say, as you've already got an offer or you've applied, then you most likely have met that condition. Right, you want to talk a little bit about the structure, Bruce?
Yeah, so it's, again, irrespective of your pathway or your route into the program, it's 180 credits is the credit weighting for a 12-month program. 100 credits, again, irrespective of the particular pathway you choose, 100 credits is pre-specified. 60 credits of that is a summer dissertation. Okay, which, as it's 60 credits, it's a chunky piece of work, but students find this very valuable, not just in terms of those students who think, oh, I love research, I'm going to go off and do a PhD and be an academic, of which there are some lovely examples, but students who want to work in a particular sector or even want to work and target a particular bank or investment house as their institution have often done really impressive dissertations, doing a bit of research on that bank and that bank's history and its progress over time. And I found that actually very useful. But it is a 60 credit dissertation, so it does involve building on 2 modules which you will have taken in the months just before you undertake the dissertation. So these modules run from January to March. So if you come in January, the first thing you will be doing as a student will be taking modules in research methods and econometrics. Econometrics of finance, it's challenging, but it's deliberately challenging. Students really enjoy this because you've got a relevant degree or some relevant content in your previous degree. We don't start from absolute first principles of statistics. That knowledge is built in, but that allows us in econometrics to bring in some of the modern stuff, some of the up-to-date, state-of-the-art tools, looking at time series data, looking at co-integration of different types, all things like this. These are the sort of skills that are really important for modern investment houses, modern investment analysis, modern jobs in banking. It's the econometrics, building on the stats, knowledge that you'll bring with you. Those techniques can really bring your CV alive, and that's why econometrics of finance is taken by all MSc Finance students, irrespective of whether it's risk, investment, banking, or MSc Finance you leave with. That econometrics of finance on your CV, that jumps out at employers because it's different. It's challenging, but deliberately challenging. And it will often help you if you want to do a dissertation that's particularly quantitative. The econometrics module targets that directly and will give you the kind of techniques and skills that you need to do some innovative quantitative work in dissertation. Research methods, which accompanies econometrics of finance, that is taken actually by students right across the extension programs, so not just the MSc in finance. That stands back a little bit and looks at the research process. What is research? Why are we doing research? How do we create knowledge? If you're doing interviews or questionnaire survey work or case studies, experts come in who've been doing this sort of thing, including myself and others who've done a lot of this work. We talk to you about what's involved in that work. What are the pitfalls? What are the strengths? How can it be used? How do you write it up? How do you put together a literature review? That's built into that research methods course. So that is 20 credits. Econometrics is 20 credits and dissertation is 60 credits. So that's your 100 credits pre-specified. Your 80 credits then are defined by which particular pathway you're taking. As I say, if you do the MSc Finance, Bedrock version of the program, you can pick any 4 of the 20 credit modules because all the other modules are 20 credits. If, for example, you're doing the risk program, 2 of your 4 modules are pre-specified and 2 are electives. But you end up doing these 3 compulsory modules plus 4 others. That is what will constitute your overall MSc Finance programs. As it says there, the optional modules depend on your pathway. Again, some flexibility at the start of a semester. Students ask me, lecturers have no problem at all. If you want to sit in 1 or 2 extra modules, what we call auditing the modules, just see what you fancy. Is it quantitative that you want? Is there a more theoretical element to this module? The best thing to do is just sit in spend your first week just attending lots of classes and then working back to your choice of pathway.
So to econometrics for finance research methods. Econometrics for finance is absolutely necessary to your employer. If your employer looks at your degree and you don't have econometrics in it, then they will think it's a very strange finance degree and it would be a bad signal. So incredibly important there for employability reasons. And the research methods, there is a research methods in an academic level as well, but there's also research methods is critical for anybody working in the finance sector. If you're going forward and researching any particular issue so as to be able to advise your firm or to make a decision or to trade, you've got to be absolutely well-grounded in research methods. So again, incredibly important for employability going forward. I think that's a good place to stop with these overheads. But we can come back and just talk a couple of things. One of the things which I'm often asked about is the student experience here at the university. And that is always incredibly highly rated within the United Kingdom, but also in Scotland as well. Currently #1 in Scotland, and I think number 11 in the UK at the moment in student satisfaction, but just recently we're #5. But we're always very high. And people ask me why that is the case, and I think I give 3 answers to it. The first is that we're incredibly focused on teaching, but teaching from a research applied background. So it's from an understanding, you're being taught by people who are incredibly interested in their subject. They wake up in the morning and they say, "You little ripper, I'm off to do finance or quantitative maths or qualitative whatever." It's that level of excitement within the lecturer who is just on top of it all and wants to do the teaching. The university itself has got the TEF Gold Award, which is for teaching excellence, and there's only 10 universities in the United Kingdom that have been awarded the TEF Gold. And so there's this very strong ethos that teaching and changing lives through teaching is incredibly important. The second reason is that the campus is actually very small. It's very self-contained. The accommodation is on the campus. People don't buy cars. They don't even buy bicycles. They just walk to and from their living quarters to the campus. And so you get a very strong feeling of a community within the campus. And the campus is right next to the city centre. So you can just step across in 3 minutes and you're into the city centre. Not a big city, 150,000 people, but it's a port, and it's been a trading port for centuries. And so it's multicultural and it has a very comfortable attitude towards people from any background. And also on top of that, the 3 biggest employers are the University of Dundee, University of Abertay, and Nine Wells, which is a large teaching hospital. And the town is very comfortable with how important these institutions are. So there's that community feeling. And then the third thing is the student union, incredibly well run. 23 years I've been here, always well run. They've found a way of passing the management from one year to the next to the next. The student union runs the clubs and societies, the cafes and food areas, but they also run all of the feedback, which Bruce has already talked about. And that feedback is through the module process, through the feedback about programs, feedback about schools, and at the university level. And that feedback is absolute gold dust to us. This is what drives the whole improvement in the process, that and employability as we go along. And the university recognises how important the union is, and so they're embedded in all of the really senior committees across the university as well. One of the interesting things was that they were involved in the appointment of school deans. So the recent school dean had a representative, I think it was the president of the student union, in the interview panel as well. So I think those are the major areas. Nice town, Dundee, looking over the water, close to the international airports, and it's just got a really nice community feel. Anything you want to finish up with, Bruce?
No, I mean, as I said at the start, Dundee is part of me, and I feel very close to this city, and I'm very proud of the university. The university has always been a kind of beacon for academic quality and engagement since it got its independence just over 50 years ago, since it became an independent institution. And I wouldn't still be here if I wasn't very proud of my hometown and the education it offers to students around the world, and has done for decades, and always of a high quality, always student focused and student centered. So I'm delighted to be part of it, and delighted to interact with anybody who wants to ask me anything or going forward via email, or please just get in touch. Delighted.
So we will also circulate contact details for questions as we go forward. I think that's a good place to finish. Bruce, you're fabulous and wonderful. Thank you for joining us here today and talking about the program. And if you do get to Dundee, please come and knock on my door and tell me the story of your journey here. I'll be very interested to hear about it. And I wish you all the very best in your studies and whatever decisions you make, and I hope things work out for you. Okay, I'll turn off the recording shortly, Bruce, and we can talk on a little bit afterwards. But bye, everybody, and hope to see you in Dundee.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.